Hello everyone. So I was finally able to play Martha is Dead thanks to a friend. So we played this together and yeah. So we took about 4.5 hours ish to go through this game, and I do feel like there was a decent amount of stuff that we missed along the way. I am definitely going to check out a little bit of some of the other paths that you can take in this, but from what I've read, you still kind of get the same ending no matter what the choices you make. Of course, it'll different dialogue, things like that along the way. But yes, 4.5 hours, kind of what I was able to put into this game, is developed by LKA and published by Wired Productions. So this is a horror and very disturbing, visceral game that you'll be able to play on PC, the last generation of consoles, and then this new generation of consoles, being the PS5 and Xbox Series X, Series S, things like that. So without further ado, let me get into my review for Martha is Dead. So yes, Martha is Dead. Psychological horror is what they go for, and this game is set in kind of the later. I'm pretty certain it's the later years of World War II in the Tuscany region of Italy. You play as a character named Julia, and I'll kind of get into how this game kind of progresses in a little bit here. But she has a twin sister named Martha, and they live in their childhood in their nanny's estates. They are identical twins, and Martha has been deaf since like her very early childhood, and we find out that their mother blames Julia for this because in the womb she believes that Julia somehow applied blunt force to her sister while in the womb, and that's why she's not able to hear. It's definitely very clear that Martha is the favorite of the two sisters, but they love each other nonetheless. They have a very strong bond, as or as you can see in the early stages of this game. But their father serves as a general in the German army, and they live very isolated. The kind of one aspect that they have to the land that they live on, it's a huge estate, but their nanny accounts that there is a legend of a white lady who kind of lives in a small little island in the lake near the estate that they're living at. And this white lady was the spirit of a very malicious woman who was murdered by her lover and hung from a tree on that island in the center of the lake's estate. So one afternoon, Julia kind of asks her sister Martha to go near the lake to take photos, but you don't find Julia that day. But you don't find Martha that day. So Julia goes, takes the photos alone, and on her way back, she finds out that her sister had been killed. She has no idea how. She finds her corpse. But as this all happens, her parents find her, and her mother immediately thinks that it was Julia who was killed. So Julia takes on the identity of Martha for this game and just basically assumes her entire identity. So, of course, her mental state starts to deteriorate after her sister's death. She basically struggles to remember anything that happened in her life beforehand, especially the days leading up to and the day of her sister's untimely death. So there's a bunch of memory lapses. She finds the corpse of her boyfriend Lapo, who was a soldier in the Italian resistance. Basically, there's a lot of death that comes into her life, and it's just basically her trying to piece together what happened in her life beforehand, trying to figure out what happened to her sister, and a bunch again of just very psychological horror elements that they're able to bring into this game through that. So you play the game in first person, and I want to say that first hour of this game is definitely geared towards setting up basically what I just explained. And then the next 2 hours are a lot of kind of running around, grabbing pieces here and there of certain clues that'll help Julia remember the story about what happened. But there's not a lot of dialogue nor story that's really told in this. It's basically just running and exploring the estates from a whole bunch of different points where you're doing little puzzles that are definitely intuitive enough to keep you interested, but there's not really a lot of dialogue or story to keep you too engaged. So I want to say that little part of the game is very, very slow and tedious, and it can feel a lot longer than it actually is. And again, if the puzzles weren't kind of fun enough, or you weren't invested in hoping that this next thing that you're doing is going to give you more of the story, it definitely would have been a lot harder to get into this game. But the last hour and a half, 2 hours that I was able to play were definitely heavy on the psychological horror elements of this game. And one kind of warning that I definitely will give is that this game is extremely disturbing and visceral, and it it can be scary in some of the ways that they present its horror. It's extremely, again, just disturbing. There's a lot of scenes where, not to really go into too much spoilers here, but there is a lot of body manipulation in the forms of basically like human puppeteering. There's scenes where you witness basically skinning of dead bodies, live bodies, chopping up people to hide the bodies later. Like you're all doing this on your own, and it's presented to you in a way that's, again, very, very smart and well done in terms of psychological horror. And yeah, very effective in the way that it shows these extremely graphic and visceral scenes. So if that's something that's definitely going to disturb you, and I do think it definitely the if you have even a great belter, I think this definitely can get to people in a lot of ways. This game is not going to be for you. It doesn't shy away from a lot of the themes that it goes for in terms of horror and in terms of also to what I believe this game is about. I think there's a lot of ways that you can look at it by the end of it, but I'm pretty certain that DID, so identity disorder, is what they really try to show in this game, and they do a very, very good job with it, but they also show a lot of the horrors and trauma that comes from it. It doesn't shy away from, again, just illustrating the worst of the worst of what trauma in this sense can be, especially in terms of, well, Julia's storyline. It's, again, like I've stressed, very disturbing, and it can be very tough to get through or look at on the screen sometimes. And I do really like that they didn't shy away from that, and they still do it in a very respectful way. It's not anything that shows that this can be a superpower or something that's necessarily chosen by someone that they can just switch on and off. It happens and it messes up people's lives, their memories, the way that they feel things and experience a lot of things that come into their life, whether it be good or bad. Again, it just does it in a very respectful way. And by the end of this game, too, there's a message that basically has a hotline for people who may be dealing with any type of depression. And they do stress the fact that, again, like people needs to get these areas off their chest and not have that be done in a monetary way or a way that's going to, again, try to take things not in their experience. It's very, very respectful in the way that they're able to tell the story, present it, and kind of do talk about the mental health aspects around it. Kind of with that, a lot of this game can, especially by the end too, you're left kind of picking up the pieces in your mind about what the story was about, what exactly happened. Again, that's what I believe this game is truly about, but it just seems like the most likely and there's the most evidence, but I was able to find to support this. But I'm certain there's a bunch of different ways to look at it, and I'm excited to dive a little bit more into it on YouTube with people smarter than me and who had a lot more time than me to go into it and kind of explore this. So I'm certain there's so many ways to look at that. But if it was going for a DID based story, they did a fantastic job and very respectful job doing so and presenting it to people. But of course, it's not for the faint of heart. Graphically, this game is just absolutely beautiful. It's done on the Unreal Engine 4, and yeah, just the graphics, the textures, the lighting, especially if you're able to do this on RTX with dynamic lighting, it's insanely beautiful. And that's kind of where I highly recommend being able to play this game. Of course, it's still going to look beautiful on any place you're able to play it, but yes, it's the graphics are outstanding, the shadows, physics, things like that are very good, very good. I just wish that there was a way to the movements are very, very slow when you're doing everything in the first person and moving around the house. I just wish that there was ways to speed up the gameplay a little bit. And again, with the puzzles, it can feel very slow and draggy. But again, the last hour and a half, 2 hours, sorry, hour and a half, 2 hours of this game really picks up and brings some very great psychological horror to it. So again, there's a few things that I do think this game is definitely not going to be for everyone. um you have to be in a mindset to, like, this game will hurt you in ways and it is going to disturb you in a lot of ways. So again, in that area, it's not going to be for everyone, but it is a very fantastically made game, and I feel like if there was a little bit more time to tell its story, it could have benefited from it in a lot of ways. But what they're able to bring out and put out here was very, very good. I do know that in term I believe it was the PlayStation version of this game has been heavily censored. So if you want to experience what the makers of this game are truly going for, doing it on PC is going to be the best way to do it. Or watching it on YouTube with someone who's able to play the early cuts of this game. But again, very disturbing, but very, very well presented, very, very respectful, and it does an amazing job doing what it was meant to do. So with everything taken together, I'm going to give Martha is Dead a 7 out of 10. If we're just talking about the story, my score is definitely going to be a lot higher for that. I did quite enjoy it, but taking story gameplay together, that's the score that I'm going to give it. But if you play Martha's Dead, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. And if you like this review, you can definitely give it a thumbs up and check out everything I do on this channel. We'll play this down below. I'm freaking single links on the top here. Thank you for subscribing, turning the little ringer on so you know when I upload videos. If you want to check out everything I do live stream and Twitch wise, there's a link to that in the description of this video, and of course my channel bio. And in both of those places, there's a link to the Media Mountaineer, which is my Discord where we talk about movies, video games, comic books, TV, pretty much everything that's awesome in this world. So you can definitely join that amazing community. I'll make it even more amazing than it is already, and just awesome, guys.